Hi, this is Rochelle from Rivet Patterns. In this video, we're going to talk about understitching. Understitching you will find in patterns where you don't want to have a top stitch line. So it's a nice clean finish. You'll find it with linings and facings. It's a way to keep the lining from poking out when you have turned everything right sides out. So for example, I have this lining and main that I've sewn together here. So what we're going to do is when you understitch, you're going to push the main over towards the lining here, and then you're going to stitch right along here. You're going to stitch the seam allowance of the main to the lining. That way, when you turn it right side out, it'll force the lining to flip sort of towards the inside, so it's not as visible. What that looks like in a bodice, and this is the Sorel bodice. So you can see I've got my neckline put together, my clear elastic is in here. So when I go to understitch, I'm going to turn it right side out as I go. And I'm going to push this part, the main part, towards the lining. So I'm going to pull it over here and I'm going to stitch right along the seam allowance. Let me show you what that looks like on the... To do my understitching, you need a stretch stitch. My favorite is the lightning bolt stitch. Go ahead and put that in. So again, we have the lining and we have the main, and we want to attach the seam allowance to the lining. If you've added clear elastic, like in this bodice, it also will encase that. So I just have to kind of go slow and get this under. Okay, so you can see under here, I have the seam allowance. It's pushed towards the lining here. So I'm going to start at the shoulder seam. Doesn't really matter where you start. Make sure you're using a thread that coordinates well, because if your lining does flip, you are going to want to keep it as camouflaged as possible. Okay? And then we are just going to start sewing. Okay, you're going to try not to stretch everything. You're going to try and get right at the end of the seam allowance. Keep it over here. So constantly pause and maneuver your fabric. Try really hard not to stretch the fabric at all. You'll want a tension that's enough to get through your elastic if you have it, but hopefully not to stretch. And you're going to continue around the entirety of your neckline or whatever it is that you are understitching. Now you can see we've got it all understitched and pressed to the other side. If you have the option, it's best to use the same for the lining as the outer or something really similar that blends in. But if not, this looks really nice too. So you can see how it's nice and clean. And when you put it on, it'll keep the lining rolled to the inside. And that's it.